to the Joseph CSG for leading us in worship today. Yeah, thanks. My wife was telling me if I walked up with crutches, people understand that I've got something wrong with my leg, you know. If I walk up with a tongkat, she says it shows my age. But someone else said it's fashionable, so I will take the second comment as a more uplifting comment. Thank you very much for praying, and you might have spotted it 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks ago in the prayer focus when I shared. I was going for a surgery for a lump on my ankle, which, again, I must confess, I've been rebuked many times by very concerned brothers and sisters in the church that the lump shouldn't remain there. Although it never bothered me, there was no pain, no discomfort there. Then the doctor said, a doctor friend of mine said, because he saw it 6 months earlier, he said that 6 months later, he said, hey, it's grown. When I saw it 6 months ago, it didn't bother me. Because it hasn't bothered you for the last 4 to 5 years. But because the lump grew, he said, let's do an MRI. So the MRI was done, and it showed that was nothing sinister. Although the lump is currently under biopsy, I will know the results next week. But he said that the reason why there was no pain or discomfort was because the lump was not impinging any nerve or tendon or cartilage or anything like that. But if it grows bigger, then it will. And at the point of time when we want to take it out, it'll be more complicated. So with that kind of advice and with that kind of, gentle rebuke from my brothers and sisters in the Lord, I took faith in the Lord, and with my wife supporting me in terms of keeping me under house arrest to ensure that my ankle is full of stitches, because it was a big lump, so the hole is very big. If you're not girly, if you come and see me afterwards, I can show you the surgical, Prof. Vivek, which was recommended by our brother Jusin, was my surgeon, and he was like, after the surgery, I was conked up by GA, but by the surgery, he was taking photos of all this. And of course, being a prof, there were students around at the surgical theater. Thank you very much for praying, all of you who were. Topic today, contemporary contemplations, and that normally means freedom to the speaker to choose what he feels he was contemplating on and whether it's contemporary. I'm not sure I qualified with my topic, but there were things close to our hearts. When I say we, I actually mean those of us here who think about evangelism in our church, and in particular, our own committee in church called the EWG, Evangelism Working Group, and I said, let this sharing today be from all of us from EWG. So I asked for comments and inputs from my EWG brothers and sisters about evangelism in our church. It was quite shocking to us that we could not have CE this year. You realize, right? Every year we have a CE time, 3 to 4 months. It's in the church calendar. We could not have a CE this year because there were names given for prayer, but finally no one actually came forward with a seeker. No one. Now, whether the Lord didn't lead you to someone or you had, and we're not judging anyone here, but we were wondering, how come? How come in a church 250 to nearly 300, if you include those on the screen and those upstairs? No one? We were willing to do it for just one seeker, right? And we had a whole plethora of capable CE leaders who could lead a group from all states of maturity and age group. Yeah. And so we made us think about why are we in this position, and made me think about sharing this topic with you. Let's read this together. I didn't have back means this one. Okay. So Paul had a fantastic discourse from Romans 9 to 11, and somewhere smack in the middle, although he was talking about how God looked at Israel today, he talked about how do people come to the Lord? Because for Paul, he only lived for one thing, to please his Lord, calling to him to be a missionary in new frontiers. And then he called upon his beloved brothers and sisters in Rome to talk about this. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? The they moves in terms of who is Paul talking to. How are they to preach? It's not the same as how are they to believe whom they have never heard. How are they to preach unless they are sent? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Sometimes we can use, this word that we come out in the working life these days, KPI and measurements of whether we are giving the outcomes required of us. And sometimes I think that how much we take our faith seriously, but to put it more bluntly, how much we love the Lord, maybe it's measured. I'll leave you to make these considerations for yourself. Maybe it's measured by how much we share him with others, and whether we care enough with his love to share with others. But today's sharing with you is, how come it went off? Okay. Today, sharing with us, for us, is about perhaps it's an assumption, perhaps you find it a bit more struggling. It cannot be you ran out of friends to share with, because it's a lifelong journey. Okay, but maybe you realize, even if it's from age group to age group, how I want to say something like, or it's like 20 years ago, the people I shared with can click, and we have a meaningful spiritual conversation. But today, cannot find the click, cannot find the touch point I use, where we could have this conversation, because I want you to come to share our last hymn. I want you to come to the Father, and I will hold your hand. You will have to decide what you do with the Father in front of you, and He's loving you, but I will bring you to Him. And maybe it's like, can't grasp that hand, because the world moved and we didn't move with the world to understand where the click happens. When is it that hand reaches out? So this is what I'm sharing today, and I ask these questions. Is it you find it more difficult? I mean, I don't know. Those of us who have been longer, those of us who have been a longer time on earth, or those of us who have been longer time a Christian, right? Like, now more difficult to share the gospel. Whether it's the lingo is not the same as the TikTok lingo, or or I can't use language that they don't understand, or sometimes it's more frightening when it appears we have nothing to say which they want to hear. Or the way we say it and what we say are not the things they need to hear. And perhaps today's sharing will make us think a bit more. No way I'm saying what I say today is going to be all and end all of this topic, but makes us think a bit more, especially for those of us who have consciously, unconsciously, or subconsciously stopped being intentional about witnessing for the Lord. Consciously, unconsciously, or subconsciously stopped being intentional about sharing Christ with others. And I wonder whether it's because the world moved and we didn't go in sync. Maybe because of our age. Oh, I'm waiting to get off the world anyway, so I don't have to adapt. Yeah, but that may be one reason why. And so I'm sharing this today on the world today. But then I go back to the gospel because it was a gospel for all time, not AD 27 to AD 30 when Christ was walking the earth doing his ministry. But it was a gospel for all time. And it's definitely, therefore, the gospel for the world today. And of course, I end with what are we going to do about it? So, the world is changing so fast. I shared this, I think, December last year about generations. From generation to generation, he will be God. And I was saying that there's the word generation, but there's the word age. So we all come from different generations, and used to be generations was 40, 60 years age group. Now it's because the world moves so fast, it's like seen. If I use the term Gen Z, then you realize it's in a range of 20 years. Those born in year 2000 and above, but up to 2020. Up to 20 years, then you're already into Gen Alpha. Yeah, but before Gen Z was the millennials. Yeah, Gen Y. That's where my kids came from. Yeah, but even when I asked about Gen Y talking to Gen Z, even in my office, when my Gen Y lawyers, and they're only about 10 years difference, yeah? 5 years difference, Gen Y talks to Gen Z. Oh yeah, so hard to say, this is how we do our law practice. This is how we read a law case. This is how we do our agreement. This is how we do our submission. And then trying to make Gen Z agree and conform to the standards that we want, already see a difficulty. But when it comes to age, where the whole collection of generations change, we have modern age, and then we have postmodern, which we have moved from, and now we are in what we call meta-modern. We used to talk about universe, and then when we say I can jump from one universe to another, if you remember the Spider-Man movie from long ago, different Spider-Mans came from different universe, and you all get it together. Then now Zuckerberg talks about a metaverse, which I understand was a financial flop. I read he lost 70 billion or something trying to work out this meta platform. But he called it metaverse, and it's as if you all used to argue, but I'm meta, right? Metaphysics means I'm above physics. I understand Newton's law, but there's another law at work above Newton's law, and that's why it's called metaphysics, sometimes in the realms of philosophy. So meta-modern is the age we're in, right? It doesn't matter what we're having conflicts about. Okay, I'm above all that because this is today's age. Testing. Is it still on? Okay, I suddenly felt, is my sound still okay? No, it's not. Okay, sound missing. Testing. Testing. Is it okay now? No, got to speak louder. Change mic. Okay. There's always plan B.
Just want to.
Thank you. So we are in this age, and the world today, I picked up a few characteristics. No way this is a complete discourse of what the world is like today, but I want to pick up a few things, and for us to be aware how the world moves so fast just from 20 years ago. If I use that time span, It's a cyber culture, a tech world, the outburst of social media. Two laws already tell you how Malaysia is badly coping. That people, kids in our educational institutions commit suicide because they are bullied. And a kid in her toilet can be stabbed 16 times by a boy 2 years younger than her. And he walks out of it feeling nothing. This is not just confined to Malaysia. One cannot take the social media impact from those situations. I'm not fully analyzing what happened, but we kind of know. And a few days ago, our Minister of Law, and I'm proud of this, I've read the bill. I urge you to read the bill. We now have an anti-rang undang-undang. We have an anti-bullying bill. The fact that we come from a culture that loves each other across cultures and yet suffer from bullying, mainly because social media allows me to bully you even without being in your presence. Maybe it was limited before, but today we have an anti-bullying act and we needed it. And so if anyone is bullied today, the definitions are there, whether online or physical, you commit an offense. And we had to do that. I'm all for banning social media from 16 years and below. It's happened in Australia. There's a pushback now, but it is law on the cards as well. Let's be clear here, brothers and sisters. The platforms are profit-driven and predatory. Predator. They are profit-driven and predatory. They are predators for profit. So I'm okay, because I know that will be how they suck you into being addicted to having to be on their platform. We are Christians. We love our country because we are Christians. Where will you stand when these issues come up? Where do I start talking about AI? I worry for the time when AI, I have to do this, I have to lead this Bible study tomorrow, be it whatever context you need to do Bible study. I've got no time. Mr. OpenAI, ChatGPT, can you help me prepare some Bible study questions and give me more insight to this Bible passage so that I can lead my Bible study tomorrow? I can say that for sermon preparation as well. And when that happens, are we not in a kind of dangerous spiritual position? Because the true teacher for us, when we go to his word, whether to share the word or to preach the word or to study the word, it's not ChatGPT. I'm not saying it's a tool that we cannot use. And there is a fine distinction there, which we sometimes fail to distinguish and end up having a different teacher from the Holy Spirit. We were with Lim Kit Siang, YB Lim Kit Siang, in the theatre in Pian, when we had 2 rounds already, and the second round, when Kit Siang came up to speak, and we asked him, what is on your agenda these days? And he used this term, multipolarity. Then we are, apa ni. So, I'm seeing the world today in this globalization stage is about multipolarity. It used to be one side against the other in the Cold War and so on. But now it's multipolar. And I thought we have a little demonstration of this just by looking at the Sabah politics that happened. I mean, I was just amazed at how the government came to be, and I'm not sure the drama is over yet, looking at the multipolar dimensions of that Sabah elections recently. But just a little observation of how we are supposed to allow everyone to be who they want to be and what they believe in. Yeah? And some survey institutions, have you heard of Barna? B-A-R-N-A. It's a major youth, I think Christian as well. Barna's survey institution that tries to take surveys and all. And it said, and there was this very disturbing survey, Christian millennials and Christian Gen Z feel, there's a high percentage, bordering on 50%, nearly 50%, feel that, okay, which age group am I talking about? 20s to 30s, yeah? Feel that for me to have a desire to convince you to change your religion, for me to have a desire for you to change your religion is not on. It's something that shouldn't be done. Whether you're going to say it's not politically correct, it's not socially correct, it's just not on. You, there's a term we use, you do you. You be what you want to be, I'll happily accept it. And for me to say there's something wrong with your religious belief, not ngam lah. So there was this survey that seemed to indicate this is coming in. And I can only see it from this push for pluralism and a multicultural global community. I'll be clear about this, brothers and sisters. Sharing you with Christ and wanting you to believe in Christ is not trying to make you change your culture. Must be the case. Yeah, that's why we have multi-cultures in Revelation when we stand before God one day, and all of us showing the beauty of our diversity in culture. Yeah. But this idea that pluralism means I not only tolerate, it's a bad word. Tolerate is a bad word. I not only tolerate, that's not good enough. I accept you for who you are, what you become, what you believe in. That doesn't mean you cannot change. I'm ready to help you if you want to, but I'm not going to disrupt your life by telling you something that will change what you have come to believe in, culturally or otherwise. Not on. And that is part of the world today. It is catching on. More closer to home. My daughter lives in London, but like, Lian, you try not to go to Oxford Street, okay? Because you can get mugged, right? You can hold a phone and someone will cycle past you and grab your phone. It's not safe. So I'm very glad she's in a suburb of London with their own Oxford Street and a little mall and so on. But it's like the safety, and the safety is not just physical, it's about any phone number that comes to your phone that is not on your directory, do not answer. Because more than half the time, it is a scam call. We've come to even fear about that kind of safety. Surviving economy financially. I recently learned of this term. This one must stand, but cannot stand. So, if I put my two hands like that, and look at my trunk, and my two hands like that, what letter in the alphabet am I? K, right? Okay, so you can Google this, but I read an article where he said, there is a K-shaped economy that has come upon us. A K-shaped economy. It came out of COVID, but it's carried on. So the top arm is the haves. The bottom arm is the have-nots. You bring it into our own economic analysis. If I say B40, you know the term? Right? Bottom 40. M40, you know the term? Middle class 40. T20, to make it 100%. You know the term? So T20, M40, B40. We are, of course, trying to push B40 smaller so that there's more M, middle class. So a B40, you could say 4 people in a household, average income 3,000 a month. I'll put you in the B40. Okay? Just going by the price of chicken, how many times can you put chicken on the table in a week will describe what a B40 budget is like. Kazana Research Institute, you can Google KRI, have thrown this out and said, for Malaysia, the B is increasing. The M is increasing as well, but higher level and shorter segment, smaller segment. The T is being squeezed. Yeah. But the K-shaped economy tells us the T is getting better in terms of the wealth they have. To take the age-old, if we call it the downside of capitalist economy, the rich get richer. And so the K typifies that, correct or not? If you go further down in a horizontal x-axis, right, the gap gets wider, correct or not? In a K shape, in a K configuration. As you go further in the x-axis, the gap gets wider. It is a phenomenon already being experienced in America by the economists who count the numbers. Yeah, that's why this idea of survival is the word used. I'm not able to survive. Climate change, 1,800 people, maybe more counting, just in our part of the world, died in the last 4 weeks. 6,000 Malaysians were trapped in Hajai. 600 have died in Sri Lanka. Nearly 900 have died in Indonesia. Thailand had nearly 300. But whenever they put Malaysia in there, we have two who died because of the floods. And that is, everyone says, Hajai, everyone said, we know, we have floods every year. And it's this time of the year. And you could hear the horror stories of, yeah, but every time there's a flood, 6 inches lah, or 1 foot into my house. That's why I build cement, whatever, 1 foot. But this time, it didn't stop rising. It didn't stop rising. What changed? Climate change. Was it human cause? Probably so. And so we have this even question, looking at the state of war, looking at the state of starvation, looking at the state of climate change, earthquakes, volcanoes that didn't erupt for 2,000 years, suddenly erupted in Ethiopia. Is the world coming to an end? Existential fear, more than ever before, in my reckoning, in this world today. Where do I begin to talk about this? My little chat group of my Form 5 mates was saying, the other day, when I went to see my psychiatrist, I've been seeing for the last 25 years, I've never seen such queues. I've never seen such queues in psychiatrist clinics before. From all age groups, which is again, I've never seen before. How many young adults are in that queue? I've never seen it before. We know about this. The other day, our dear sister Chengi was sharing with our FES staff about how to cope with this amongst the students in campus. Very true. So, to conclude this part, brothers and sisters, we can't stop the world changing from age to age. But let's be clear here. We, in a Christian view, in a Christian worldview, view things from a biblical standpoint. Correct? We see things differently sometimes, most of the time, because we see it from God's perspective. This is not normal social evolution. This is not human progression as the world evolves, not just physically, hopefully not evolving in the wrong direction, but that's what's happening physically in the world. as what biblically it says in Romans 8, creation groans for its redemption. It will get worse. This was also Jesus' prophecy in the Matthew prophetic chapters, chapter 23, 24, 22 to 24. But more than that, it is because this world has a God, small g. And we remember what Paul reminded. His whole quest to share the gospel. And he says, I'm not in neutral territory. It's not just me trying to convince someone logically and intellectually why the Christian faith is reasonable. Come to Jesus. Paul says, I have enemies. And they don't stop strategizing. They don't stop trying to make the world move further and further away from what God wants it to be. And so he reminded his Corinthian believers, his beloved church in Corinth, he reminded the church in Ephesus that there is a spirit, there's an evil spirit at work, making this world more and more in darkness. There's a God of this world, small g, there's a prince of power of the air, and there's a spirit at work. And so whenever a scammer can say, I don't mind wiping out this senior citizen's savings because that's my KPI, and feels nothing about it, we can hold him responsible. He will go to jail, as you recently saw. Even Japanese and Chinese nationals have their scam center in Malaysia. Recently, you read the papers. It is Satan at work. It is spiritual warfare. So this is the world we are in today. But let us remind ourselves of the gospel we have, which we will soon be celebrating one more time at the Christmas Advent celebration. He came to save the world for all ages. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the Word was life, and the life was the light of man. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And at the end of his earthly time here, Jesus told his disciples, this is just the beginning. You catch the drift? Right? At the end of his earthly life here, Jesus told his disciples, hey guys, this is just the beginning. How will they hear if no one preaches to them? And how will they preach to them if they are not sent? And this is Jesus telling, dear brothers and sisters, all of us today, all of us are sent. No matter how long you've been a Christian, all of us are sent. Go therefore, make disciples of all nations. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. We are sent, dear brothers and sisters. But it's a gospel of all time. It's a message we carry with us, and it's like, I can't wait to tell you, but I've got to look at God's timing. But somehow inside us, we are looking for the openings and the opportunities. I can't wait to tell you this story that we sang about. He is our peace. What happened today in worship, in the songs we sang about how much we love and have thoughts about Jesus. I can't wait to tell you, and I got to find how to tell you in this world we are all in today. But it's a message of all time. It is a message which means good news. Gospel in Greek means good news, Evangelion, based on a historically true narrative grounded on real facts and events that actually happened. Now, one of the first objections we get is, I don't think water can turn into wine. I don't think there can be virgin birth. But if it's in your Bible, it's okay. Whether you believe it literally, I got problems lah. Because I studied physics. Miracles don't happen. Okay? It's a common objection. We come counter to that. We are counter to that. Because we say, if you put God in your physics, of course, but God is outside the physics because He created physics or the physics laws, right? So that's what miracles is, a departure from the normal scientific laws, which can happen if the one in charge is the one that created that law in the first place. So we base our gospel on historical facts, very crucial to the message we are saying. Secondly, it has propositional truths. We know this, brothers and sisters. You could use the 4 spiritual laws. You could use Billy Graham's steps to peace with God. We know how to say this if we wanted to put it in a formulaic statement, right? God made us for Him. He wanted us to obey Him and live for Him. Then we will have the correct way to live. We decided not to do that. We decided to live our own lives. Therefore, we chose the way of sin, which is rejecting God. Not just, it's because you reject God as God in your life, you break the 10 commandments. But sin is not fundamentally breaking God's commandments. Sin is first of all telling God, I live my life the way I want to, leave me alone. And God says, because I love you, if you reject me, I will leave you alone. But you're on a path that means you will never have me, right? Sin is man telling God, go away and leave me alone. Hell is God sadly replying. Hell is God sadly replying, you will have your wish. C.S. Lewis quote. I've shared this before. And so the propositional truth is, God wanted us to come back to Him, but our sin had to be dealt with. And so Jesus came to save us in that manner, to deal with our sin by dying for the consequences of our sins. So believe in Him and come back to Him. Change your life. For in Him, new life we found. And in Him, our lives were changed around. We know the propositional truths. And there's no way you can escape having to take sides. Right? And this is counter to the culture where I should respect your beliefs. You should respect mine. Why are you trying to bring your religion on me? Yeah, sure. That's the response we get. Why can't you, like in a meta-modern age, why can't we all just accept pluralism? Where pluralism has become relativism, which means it's one thing to say, I accept all of us with different truths. It's another thing to say, all of them don't matter. They all, in the end, it doesn't matter which one you believe. That's relative truth. That's relativism. That is sin and Satan at work to make us screened, shielded from what God says is propositional truth that is put forward to us. But then, more than that, and this is key for us in the world today, more than just agreeing with the propositional truths intellectually, to believe in Him means to live out that faith from your heart and be part of a community that shares that faith in relationship with Him. Just a reminder of these wonderful verses from Paul. First, both of them to his beloved church in Philippi. Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I see you or am absent, I may hear of you, that you are standing firm in one spirit with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel. Therefore, my beloved, work out, not work for. Right? The gospel is a gospel of grace. We will never have to work for our salvation. But we jolly well, because we are saved, our life must take a certain pattern. The first point, live your life worthy of the gospel of Christ. Second point, if you've been saved, your life must work out the implications of that salvation for your life and for those around you, and why we reach out to those around us. With fear and trembling, for it is a God who works in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So my last point about a fundamental of the gospel. I call it the fundamentals of a dynamic gospel. I intentionally use the static and dynamic terminology. So the gospel is not just about how to get to heaven. I heard a new term yesterday. It's called the elevator gospel. What do you think that means? What does that conjure up for you? Elevator gospel. What happens in elevators? Press, elevator come, open, please take me to level 26. Okay? And that's what our gospel is. I used to call it the other way is the insurance policy gospel. Becoming a Christian is buying an insurance policy so that if one day when I die or when Christ comes back in judgment, I got a place in heaven. Between now and then, my life, I carry on the way the world today is. That's elevator gospel. So the gospel is not like that. It's not about how to get to heaven, but it's about how we live in this world, the way he wants us to, and to bring him into our lives and our world at any age to share that gospel, to make disciples for him. So my next point, I've talked about the world today. I've talked about the gospel for all time. So I just want to touch a bit on, so what is the gospel for the world today? Well, we look at the way the world is. We understand how the gospel is challenged by the way the world is. I used to start here in order to share Christ with you. Now I have to start here because of what Satan did to the world. 3 more arguments I got to deal with you because you're part of the world today. Yes, it's harder. And if evangelism is harder, God says, I've got you. I'll equip you. You'll be able to break those walls. This is what the armor of God is about. We don't let the world today shape what the gospel is. Correct? But I get worried. Some churches, I reserve judgment and won't name them, I got to make sure my hall is full. We've always been the minority in the world's population. Let's be clear about that. Yeah? Because Jesus himself said, many are those, right? And only few go through the narrow path. Yeah. But some churches say, I must do things the world likes so that they will come to church. So it affects the songs you sing, the music you have. And I'm not at any point trying to criticize any particular usage of songs and so on. I worry sometimes about certain lyrics being used for certain songs that I hear from outside of our church. Our sing is very safe. Under the tutelage of our dear brother Benny and the elders. You know, but I get worried about that. I get worried about how come the worship service looks like a concert? How come the preacher is a motivational speaker? You get the difference? When worship service becomes a concert and the preacher is a motivational speaker, but I get worried about it. And to me, that is the world shaping the gospel. Yeah? No, we're not that way. But we need to shape the gospel or contextualize the gospel so that in all its dynamism, we are speaking to the truths the world needs to hear today. So if I go back to the 4 facets I talked about, right? Cyber culture. We hold to the truth. Tech must not become our God. Okay? Never replace our humanness or being made in the image of God and the fact that we are spiritual beings. I gave you examples just now. Never let social media become your crux for how happy I am today is how many likes I got on my Facebook. Come on. We are worth more to God than how many likes we got on our Facebook. I don't even use Facebook, so I don't know how to get a like. But you get what I mean? Right? Where social media has defined your self-acceptance and your identity. Taken over you, actually. And the fact that influencers become more important to you than what you learn from the Bible today. AI should never replace I said it to my lawyers. I want lawyers, not prompters. You catch the difference? Yeah? And it can come into our spiritual zone as well. We celebrate the diversity God gave to mankind. Yes, I don't tolerate you. I accept you and I love you from who you are. That's pluralism. If you define it that way, I'm okay. But that doesn't mean I agree with everything you believe. But those we are commonly on the same position, we can work together. I shared with you the last time. I'm in Transparency International, an NGO fighting corruption. We commissioned a writing of a book. Reverend Kayong wrote our Christian chapter. We took the 6 religions in our country and we said we want each religion to characterize corruption as sin. Rasuah is dosa. And I was so proud to collaborate with my other fellow Malaysians of different religious faith from their theology, looking at the same issue of corruption and all concluding, Rasuah is dosa. You don't just answer to MACC. You will answer to Allah, Tuhan, your Hindu God. You will answer to your God one day because you were corrupt. It cannot be you pray 5 times a day, you're in a mosque on Friday, you come to church on Sunday, but on Monday to Friday, you're giving bribes and you're taking bribes because you say my business needs to survive. And this is the culture of Malaysia, the business culture of Malaysia, which I would not deny. Today we talked about peace, so I need not say anything about the existential fears in the world today is dealt with because we have the peace that came to us. And that same peace and hope helps us speak to our friends who live with existential fear or mental health issues. So rather than these facets of the world today becoming challenges to us sharing the gospel, yes, we now need to argue 3 steps back before we can bring that person to consider Christ, because that's his context in the world today. It's okay. Rather than these facets becoming challenges, they can instead become touch points where our gospel sharing can begin. The gospel, the fundamentals, the substance is always there. The form may change to see the situation. And I love, when I was growing up, there was Youth for Christ. I love their then motto, geared to the times, anchored to the rock. And I think that's our gospel as well. So, my last sharing with you, what happens now? So I come back to square one when I first shared. How important is sharing Christ with someone else to you? How important was it to our Lord? You know, Christians will be judged one day. Others may have one judgment. It's called the Great White Throne Judgment. But Christians got 2. We were first in the Great White Throne Judgment, and because our names are in the Book of Life, then we moved to second round, maybe a different place in heaven, another judgment hall. And it's called the Bema Judgment. You can Google it, B-E-M-A. And God and Jesus will ask each of us the way he dealt with the parable of the talents. I gave you this. What did you do with it? And all of us want this epitaph on our gravestone. That God will say to us, well done, good and faithful servant. And somewhere in that, Jesus lovingly talking to us, how did you live your life on earth for me? I cannot escape thinking that one of the questions would be, I gave you these people around you in your life. From the time you were born, the time you knew me, I gave these people around you in your life. Be it your relatives, be it your working colleagues, be it your friends from school, I gave these people. It was never coincidental or accidental. Which of them you didn't love? Which of them you didn't love enough to want to share Christ? It may not be you. I'm asking, what is in your heart? And I kind of think this is what Christ will ask us on that day. One of the most difficult things is for our friends to feel the need for God, because this is where we come in. And I don't want us to escape this truth. It was said by St. Augustine, I think he was in the 5th century. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. We felt that. That's why we came to Jesus. All our friends who don't know Jesus has this restlessness. It's how we can bring it out in them so that this gospel, this message can be shared. Whatever we say about the world today, it resonates with deep and meaningful conversations. I think the key to we of course will have a Christmas service. We will of course will have someone share the gospel. We of course want someone to say, I want to accept Christ as my Lord and Savior from that meeting. But after that, we need this to build the faith. Deep and meaningful conversations so that that need, that context comes alive and we speak to that person's real life context and situation. We have to do this. Brothers and sisters, we must be ready. We must be ready. One of my EWG members shared with me when I asked about any inputs for me to share. He said, the most difficult thing I find that we don't have is time. We don't have time to spend time with someone. We may have time to share the 4 spiritual laws, but you ask me to spend time to know what's going on in your life so that I bring Christ into your life situation. It doesn't happen without deep and meaningful conversations which need that time. And of course, the elephant in the room question is priority. And if someone says to me, Paket, I've got someone, he's willing, I think he's a seeker, he's willing to do CE with somebody. It's like, I'll drop everything and have that time. Right? In certain scenarios of our lives, and I think this is pretty crucial as well, it's not so much what we say, but how we live. Yeah. Now, finally, we must share the message, don't get me wrong. But he kind of know already you're a Christian. He kind of know already the gospel outline. But he's checking you out in how you live. Do you get drunk on Friday night together with the whole gang when they go to the pub? Because they want to relax. No, you don't. Do you stinge a bit on the payment voucher when you want to claim from the company? No, you don't. Do you use 4-letter words in your everyday conversation to, I don't know why we do it, amplify a certain point? No, you don't. Why you don't, huh? Because that's not what Jesus wants me to be like. Now, the word contrast is what shows up. And when you have that contrast, and that contrast turns into curiosity, and that curiosity turns into conversation, you're looking at a potential seeker. And that's what we want. And that's who we want. Of course, we are not perfect in our lives. But WIP, work in progress, is all what we are, all the time. So, the last point I want to make for this is, you know that verse, Romans 10, I started with it. How will they hear if they not preached to? And Paul went on, if you read further down, verse 16 onwards, Paul went down and talked about his people. Have they not heard? Did they not understand? Yet they rejected this message. Messiah went to them, and yet they rejected him till today. They reject him as the Messiah. So let's be ready as well. Jesus said, they will. Few are those who accept me. And we are okay. It is the Lord they are rejecting. So how do we end this today? I mean, what will happen? I just ask, let's live out the gospel and let's share the gospel from our lives. I'm going to end here, but I've taken the liberty. I don't know if you want to cancel it, I can cancel it. No, can. Okay. So, boss say you can carry on. So, I'm going to ask the EWG to come to the stage, and I thought we'll end this time with a song. Okay, they're still scared. Don't want to come. EWG know who you are, right? Can come. Oh, okay. Leader coming. Okay. Anderson, not coming. Anderson, coming. Okay, yeah. Some needs an additional prompting. Okay, we have one lady in our midst, but she's also very shy to come forward. Okay, she's giving me a very scary look. Can hold. So I asked for the song to go on the screen. Yeah, so smaller. Your phone has the words, right? Your phones have the words, yeah. Well, I ended by saying, let the whole world know. And some of us would have known this song from our growing up times. You know, I was just saying the first 4 lines are just intro to the chorus. The first line says, everybody seems to have a cause for which to speak. The original second line said, remember the first line, everybody seems to have a cause for which to speak. The second line says, loudly from their rooftops, they proclaim the thing they seek. Then I realized no one shouts from the rooftop anymore because it's raining every day. But everyone from their TikTok, and it rhymed, everyone from their TikTok proclaim the thing they seek, often for a needless cause and often to deceive. And I think of all the scamming that goes on and all the, please, can you see what I'm eating today? You know, needless cause sometimes. And should not we who know the Lord declare what we believe? Okay. 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 Okay, it goes like this. 1, 2. Everybody seems to have a cause for which to speak. Loudly from their TikTok, they proclaim the thing they see. Often for a needless cause and often to deceive. Should not we who